Beg forgiveness from everyone for being a little late. What I'll do is I'll take off my headphones because I think um, I can speak. And towards the end of the presentation, if there are going to be any questions, then I will put on my headphones again and speak. Sorry, I'll put on my headphones again and I will take questions and try to give answers to those questions. So we are going to read from Chaitanya Charitamrita. This is Adi Leela, chapter 1, text 34. Is that correct? Am I on the right verse? Can someone please let me know if I'm on the right verse? Acharya Prabhu, you're mute. You're on mute, so I cannot hear you. You'll have to unmute. Oh, I'm sorry. So let me go to 54. Let me quickly go to 54. Okay, here we are. So, Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Adi Leela, chapter 1. The chapter is entitled Spiritual Masters, and text number 54. So before I chant this verse, I would like to just invoke blessings once again. Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya, Jaya Nityananda, Jaya Dvaita Chandra, Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya, Jaya Nityananda, Jaya Dvaita Chandra, Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya, Jaya Nityananda, Jaya Dvaita Chandra, Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. So all glories to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, all glories to Sri Nityananda Prabhu, all glories to Sri Advaita Acharya, and all glories to all the devotees of Sri Gauranga Chandra. We are reading text 54. Riterutham yat pratiyeta na pratiyeta chatmani tad vidyādatmano māyam yatha bhaso yatha tamaha. Translation: what appears to be truth without me is certainly my illusory energy, for nothing can exist without me. It is like a reflection of a real light in the shadows, for in the light there are neither shadows nor reflections. So I'll read the purport. It's a short purport. In the previous verse, the absolute truth and its nature have been explained. I'm sorry, this is purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Yeah, Prabhupada. In the previous verse, the absolute truth and its nature have been explained. One must also understand the relative truth to actually know the absolute. The relative truth, which is called Maya or material nature, is explained here. Maya has no independent existence. One who is less intelligent is captivated by the wonderful activities of Maya, but he does not understand that behind his activities is the direction of the Supreme Lord. In the Bhagavad Gita 9.10, it is said, Maya Dhakshena Prakriti Suyate Sacharacharam. The material nature is working and producing moving and non-moving beings by the supervision of Krishna. The real nature of Maya, the illusory existence of the material manifestation, is clearly explained in the Srimad Bhagavatam. The absolute truth is substance, and the relative truth depends upon its relationship with the absolute for its existence. Maya means energy, therefore the relative truth is explained to be the energy of the absolute truth. Since it is difficult to understand the distinction between the relative and the absolute truths, an analogy can be given for clarification. The absolute truth can be compared to the sun, which is appreciated in terms of two relative truths: reflection and darkness. Darkness is the absence of sunshine, and a reflection is the projection of sunlight into darkness. Neither darkness nor reflection has an independent existence. Darkness comes when the sunshine is blocked. For example, if one is standing facing the sun, his back will be in darkness. Since darkness stands in the absence of the sun, it is therefore relative to the sun. The spiritual world is compared to the real sunshine, and the material world is compared to the dark regions where the sun is not visible. When the material manifestation appears very wonderful, this is due to a perverted reflection of the supreme sunshine, the absolute truth. Is supreme sunshine, the absolute truth, as confirmed in the Vedanta Sutra. Whatever one can see here has its substance in the absolute, As darkness is situated far away from the sun, so the material world is also far away from the spiritual world. The Vedic literature directs us not to be captivated by the dark regions, tamaha, but to try to reach the shining regions of the absolute, yogi dham. The spiritual world is brightly illuminated, but the material world is wrapped in darkness. In the material world, sunshine, moonshine, or different kinds of artificial lights are required to dispel the darkness, especially at night. For by nature, the material world is dark. Therefore, the Supreme Lord has arranged for sunshine and moonshine. But in his abode, as described in the Bhagavad Gita 15.6, there is no necessity for lighting by sunshine, moonshine, or electricity, because everything is self-effulgent. That which is relative, temporary, and far away from the absolute truth is called Maya, or ignorance. This illusion is exhibited in two ways, as explained in the Bhagavad Gita. The inferior illusion is inert matter, and the superior illusion is the living entity. The living entities are called illusory in this context only because they are implicated in the illusory structures and activities of the material world. Actually, the living entities are not illusory, for they are parts of the superior energy of the Supreme Lord, and do not have to be covered by Maya if they do not want to be so. The actions of the living entities in the spiritual kingdom are not illusory. They are the actual eternal activities of liberated souls. So, in the first chapter, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, who's the author of Chaitanya Charitamrita, is explaining certain simple aspects of philosophy, such that when we hear the pastimes of Lord Chaitanya later on, and his activities and his teachings, then we would be able to accept it in the right consciousness. Here, the present conversation, it is a part of a conversation where the Supreme Lord is speaking about his own creation. At one point of time, Brahma, the secondary creator of the world, needed some direction in life. And Lord Brahma, by his personal endeavor, he qualified himself to be able to have an audience with the Lord, where he would be able to hear the Lord speak to him. And then the Lord reveals to him about creation, reveals to him about the nature of creation. He reveals to him about existence itself. He reveals to him about his own personal existence as the Supreme Lord. All this helped Lord Brahma to find some clarity in life. So we see that right from Lord Brahma who exists in the highest planet in this material world to the lowest. Abrahma bhavana loka punaravartino Arjuna. In Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says this. And punaravartino. Punaravartino means one has to return back. Basically, it means that one completes a full circle and is back to where one was previously in terms of knowledge, because one does not have enough knowledge or enough resources of knowledge. One has taken on a journey and one is back to where one is. That is called as punaravartino. Punar means once again, and avartina means coming back. So once again, having come back to the same place where one had begun. So in the Gita, in the Srimad Bhagavad Gita, which is an excerpt, that is a part of the great epic Mahabharata. The conversation between Krishna and Arjuna has been described, and it's most of us are students of the Gita, so we know that this conversation is very deep and it is very very extensive. The conversation involves so many topics and so many various aspects of knowledge. The words that I just quoted was in reference to was to help us, or to help me give some clarity or give some additional understanding to what we just read. Abrahma bhuvana loka punaravartino Arjuna. So right from the topmost planet in this universe to the lowest, life brings us to a full circle. We are again back to the same place where we began, trying to understand what to make of life. Please let me know if the transmission is all right, because just an hour back I was having another lecture and there was some glitches in the transmission. So please let me know if it is not all right. Okay. Perfect. Thank you. So I'll continue. So why does that happen? Why does one find oneself to be in the same place? And how is it that everyone from the topmost planet to the lowest planet in this creation would be subject to this experience? So actually what Krishna is explaining is the possibility of that happening. That unless and until one is careful, unless and until one is attentive, one will find oneself coming back to the same situation where it all began. And this way of life, where one finds oneself asking the same questions, one finds oneself facing the same challenges, one finds oneself in similar frustrating situations, if not the same frustrating situation, but similar frustrating situations, where one finds oneself to be overcome by grief, by anxiety, by fear, all that one is trying to get away from. If one once again finds oneself in the same situation, then the kind of life that one is living, or the the understanding in which one is leading life seriously needs to be introspected upon. Why? One cannot have a lifestyle where one comes back, finds oneself in the same rut that one began from, the same situation that one began from. That is not a solution. That is simply kind of wasting time, not finding a solution. So I'm trying different ways to put this point across, that many a times feeling that one is in knowledge can actually also be ignorance. The reason that I say I make this statement is because again is not lack of knowledge according to the Vedic understanding. Agyan or ignorance is not lack of knowledge. Agyan or ignorance is a situation where our knowledge gets covered over. So ignorance is where we have our access cut, our access to knowledge cut off. That is what is ignorance. That is what is darkness. And in today's verse, this is a verse from the Srimad Bhagavatam, actually, being quoted by in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Rityartham yat pratiyeta na pratiyeta chatmani tad vidyat atmano mayam yatha bhaso yatha tamaha. It is many scholars consider it to be the part of the Chatushloki Bhagavat that was spoken to Brahmaji. So having heard from our previous teachers, we understand that today's verse is one of the 4 verses that was spoken to Brahmaji. And within those verses, Brahmaji got complete clarity. Nonetheless, Brahmaji and everyone else who's in this material world, including the Supreme Lord, we are all existing in what is the material world for us. For the Supreme Lord, this is not the material world. This is just his creation. So the Lord is also here, and all the other living entities like you and me are also here. And we are faced with this dilemma. We are faced with this, we are on this 2-pronged path. We are at a junction from where 2 different tracks are taking off, 2 different paths are taking off. These paths are diametrically opposite to each other. One is a path which is influenced and governed by the principles of materialism, or what we call as the material consciousness. And the other is a path that is governed by the principles of spiritual consciousness, or a spiritual outlook in life. The path that is governed by material consciousness is going to lead us towards darkness, towards ignorance. And the path that is governed by the principles of spiritual consciousness would lead us towards liberation, towards light. Both these paths are the expansions of Krishna in the form of his energy. Both these paths, both these routes are available to every single living entity at every moment in time. Every single moment in time. Let us say I walk down a particular path. Let us say that I choose the option of going down the materialistic way. I walk down one day down this materialistic way, or let us say in terms of meters, I walk down 2 kilometers down the materialistic path. By Krishna's arrangement, whenever I become introspective, I'll find myself to be at a junction from where uh, another path uh, also starts off. It is as if whenever I walk down a particular path, the other path follows me. And when I become introspective, uh, I notice that I have an option to walk down the other path. Now, this could happen either ways. Now, supposing I'm on the path governed by spiritual consciousness. If I become introspective about uh, how I'm losing out my material pleasures and missing out on it. If I introspect about missing out on material pleasures, immediately that introspection will make me see myself again at a juncture. And at this juncture, there is the path towards uh, material life existing. And this is how this material creation is. Moment to moment, one will find that as soon as one becomes introspective, as soon as one becomes analytical, one finds that one always has one of these two options. And therefore, this material world is characterized by the existence of light and darkness. Or much more simply put, or much more the terminology that is more popular is this material world is a world of dualities. This is not how it works for the Supreme Lord. The Supreme Lord is not affected by dualities. So everyone else except the Supreme Lord in this material world will be faced with dualities. Now, great personalities or the eternally liberated souls who are, who are also in this material world, they are also having their journey in this material world. These eternally liberated souls constantly choose the path of life, the path of light. Therefore, their existence is similar to the existence of the Supreme Lord. Just as the Supreme Lord is never in darkness, these great souls are never in darkness. Every moment of the introspection, they are very careful, they are very attentive to choose the path of light. However, other living entities who have a history, they have a history sheet in this material world, because having spent so many lifetimes in this material world, we will be faced with challenges, we will be faced with difficulties of which path to choose moment by moment. Now, for the Supreme Lord and for the great souls who are not affected by the uh, existence of dualities in this material world, who are eternally in knowledge, who are always in knowledge, let us say, who are always in knowledge, for them, the only reality is Krishna and service of Krishna. But for those who do not have such clarity, the world of duality appears to be a reality. For them, the world of duality appears to be a reality. Let me try and explain this, because it is very technical and the first chapter is very technical. The material world is real. There's no doubt about it, because the material world is the energy of Krishna. Krishna's energy is always real. The existence of the material world as Krishna's energy is the real existence of the material world. The existence of the material world as a place separate from Krishna for our enjoyment is the illusory understanding of the material. When we have an understanding that the material world is an energy of Krishna, then that is reality. When we have an understanding that the material world is separated from Krishna and its existence can be for me seeking pleasure separate from Krishna, this is the illusion of reality. The material world is also for serving Krishna. The material world is not a place for us to try and enjoy separately from Krishna. Unfortunately, because we do not have this clarity in life, we want to enjoy separately from Krishna. That facility in the form of an illusion or a dream appears to exist in the material world. The facility that I can enjoy from Krishna separately appears to exist. And the reason that it appears to exist is because, first of all, nothing in this material world works without the sanction of Krishna. Maya Adhyakshena Prakriti Suyate Characharam. So Krishna is in control of this material world. However, simply by putting blinkers over our eyes or covering up our eyes and thinking that there is no Krishna, that is an illusion that we create. So this illusion is the illusion of embodied life. This illusion is the illusion of the 84 million species of life, or 8 million, 84 lakh species of life, or 8,400,000 species of life. This is the illusion. I hope that is not too technical. So the material world exists. It exists as an energy of Krishna. So as soon as the great souls, those who are always in knowledge, they understand that this material world is meant for serving Krishna. And therefore, they use all the resources of this material world to serve Krishna. Hence, they are always in knowledge. They are always free from darkness. They are always free from ignorance. The disillusioned souls or living entities, thinking that because I do not see Krishna, therefore Krishna does not exist. And with this understanding, or feeling that this understanding is correct, accepting that as reality, that is the illusion of this material world, this material existence. And because of this illusion, there has to be duality. Because I think that Krishna is not there, therefore there's a duality. This brings forth the duality that Krishna might exist or he might not exist. Now, from this original misconception comes all the other dualities of heat and cold, up and down, day and night, etc., etc., etc. So during the day, one feels that one can enjoy better because one sees all various varieties. One can see distinctions. At night, because of darkness, one is not able to see. So one will feel that one cannot enjoy. Hence, one may like day better than night. Now, this idea that one can enjoy more or one can enjoy less, this duality, or one is better than the other, this duality, it comes from the fact of our misconception, or from the original doubt that we have. Does Krishna exist or does Krishna does not exist? So the simple conclusion after little introspection or analysis should be that following in the footsteps of great souls, one should understand that Krishna, not only does Krishna exist eternally, however, the material world also exists for his, in consideration of his happiness, in consideration of his pleasure. And the sooner we realize that we have to use the resources of the material world in serving Krishna, the more we'll find ourselves away from darkness and in the presence of knowledge, in the presence of light. So in light, there is no more confusion. There is no more, like in the daytime, one will never mistake a rope for a snake. But in darkness, one can mistake a rope for a snake. So in darkness, there is the existence of snake, there is the existence of rope, and there is the existence of the rope being a snake, or the existence of a snake being a rope, or the existence of a snake not being a rope, or the existence of a snake, of a rope not being a snake. So there are so many other uh, um, subsidiary misconceptions that arise in darkness. Whereas in light, there is clarity. There is rope, there is snake. The rope is not a snake, snake is not a rope. It can never happen like that. So that is what is being discussed here, where Brahmaji is receiving this knowledge from Krishna. And Prabhupada in his purport is explaining this very fact, what we try to say. And he's making it much more simple. Prabhupada's purport is very simple. First of all, he describes how the absolute truth in the form of his expansion as material energy has been described. Then he says how the misconception that this material energy is independent of the Supreme Lord can come about, and he describes that. And then he clarifies that this misconception is should be given up because Maya cannot exist separately from Krishna. Maya's the experience of being in Maya is dependent on Krishna being eternally existent. Without Krishna, this experience of being in Maya will not be there. So although the existence of Maya is dependent on Krishna, Krishna is never in Maya, and the living entity being part and parcel of Krishna also need not be in Maya. Let me try and give narrate a few stories which would help us have a little more clarity, which would help us maybe understand from another perspective. Like Prabhupada mentions that in this material world, because there is darkness, therefore Krishna has given us the sun and the moon and electricity, which helps us mitigate the darkness. We cannot overcome the darkness completely, but it helps us mitigate the darkness to a certain extent. Correct? For example, even if the sun is there, in bright sunlight, and the darkness is completely gone, all we need to do is turn away from the sun and we'll see the darkness of a shadow. So always being in light, in other words, always facing towards light is the only way for us to be away from darkness. Otherwise, the sun and the moon and electricity, which is an expansion of the sun's energy, they can only mitigate the darkness. Na tad bhasayate suryo na shashanko na pavaka yad katvana nivartante tadhama paramam mama. This is the verse from the Bhagavad Gita, 15th chapter, that Krishna was that Prabhupada quotes in the purport. That in my realm, the spiritual world, there is no existence of the sun as you know it here, the moon as you know it here, and electricity as you know it here. Here, the sun is needed to dispel the darkness. Here, the moon is needed to mitigate the darkness. Electricity is needed to mitigate the darkness. However, in the spiritual world, the sun and the moon and electricity are not needed for mitigating the darkness, because the spiritual world is always illumined. The sun and the moon and electricity can coexist there. There's a possibility that they may be existing in the spiritual world. Sometimes people feel that, when Krishna says, Natad bhasyate suryo na sashanko na pavaka. Surya means the sun, Shashanka is the moon, and Pavaka means electricity or fire. So sometimes we may feel that that means that there is no fire, no sun, and no moon in the spiritual world. That is not what is being stated here. What is being stated is Natad bhasyate. The spiritual world is not illumined. It does not need to be illumined by the presence of the sun or the moon and electricity or fire. In other words, the sun, the moon, and electricity may exist in the spiritual world. There is every possibility that that could be there. However, their existence is not needed to mitigate darkness, because there's no darkness in the spiritual world. So in this material world, we have the sun and the moon existing for this functionality. If one can reset the way we understand things, the way we perceive things, we can reset our or reorient ourselves towards this, towards the way we deal with this material creation. That would go a very long way in us having transparent knowledge or clear knowledge or perfect clarity, if we reorient ourselves. And the process of reorienting ourselves is the process of Krishna consciousness, chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Obviously, our chanting would be meaningful if we have a deeper understanding about the chanting, and therefore the other limbs of devotional service are needed too, like meditating and remembering Krishna, and hearing or reading about Krishna, and or hearing about Krishna from lectures or from either live lectures or recorded lectures. Those are needed so that our chanting becomes meaningful. Nonetheless, the process of orienting ourselves in the proper direction in the present age is a chanting of the holy names of Krishna, the chanting of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. So it's 7:27. So I'm not sure. Let me put on my earphones. Do I have time to go through another verse, or can we stop here and take questions? Oh, I'm sorry. Before that, I did say that I would tell you a couple of stories, too, simple stories. So let me tell you a couple of simple stories. One is a story that is about a saint and a king that had come to visit a saint. There are various ways that the story has been told. The crux of the story is that the saint spends time in seclusion, and there are few moments of public interaction. Like once a day, the saint would interact with people for an hour or so. Otherwise, a saint would spend time in meditation. So the king has been advised to visit the saint because the saint would be able to help the king find. The king had certain needs, certain issues, and the saint would be able to help the king with those issues. So the king had come with a lot of expectations to the saint. The saint lives in a hut, so the king comes to the hut and finds, but the king, being the king, comes at a time that the king feels is appropriate. So the king comes according to his own convenience, and unfortunately, that was not the time allotted by the saint for public interactions. So when the king comes, the saint is in deep meditation, and the king is really very eager to have a discussion with the saint, to have some interaction with the saint. However, the king is not able to catch the attention of the saint because the saint is in meditation. Let us say the saint is in open-eyed meditation, but the saint is not speaking because that is what was the saint's schedule. Is not talking. The saint is not speaking. So the king is talking to the saint, but there is no response. So the king becomes angry, and angrily the king confronts the saint. The king kind of tries to uh, exert his authority, like, I am the king, and you are, even though you're a saint, you're still supposed to be uh, um, supposed to be respectful towards your king, and you're being so disrespectful, you're not even acknowledging my existence. So the king was uh, expressing his frustration, and still there is no response from the saint. And then the king, he reaches uh, a point of such intense anger that he takes out his sword, and he says that because you are exhibiting such arrogance, I should be punishing you by chopping off your neck or chopping off your head. And that's the saint responds. The saint says that, my dear king, typically interactions take place between equals. How can I interact with you when you're actually a servant of my servant? This makes the king seriously angry. The king is so agitated. He's like, he just made a point that being the king of the land, even though one is a saint, one is supposed to respect the position of a king, which is true actually, which is not wrong, which is correct. So when the king hears the saint say that you are the servant of my servant, the king is boiling with rage. But some intelligence stops him from being uh, violent, and he says, how can you say that? And the saint says, well, you see, I've spent so many years chanting the holy names uh, to conquer my emotions, and today I have conquered anger. Whereas I see that anger is ruling over you. So you are a servant of anger, and I am the master. I have mastered over this emotion of anger. So the saint gave the king an anger management class, but basically the saint said that uh, anger serves me, and you serve anger. Therefore, you are the servant of my servant. The idea here is, many a times we may consider illusion to be reality, and we may not even realize it. We may consider the shadows in the darkness to be real. We may not realize that the shadows exist because we are looking into the darkness. The shadows are just transformations of the darkness that is already there. They are sub features of darkness. So darkness creates more and more illusion. So seeing shadows is real, but because those shadows exist only when we look into the darkness. Therefore, darkness itself being absence of light, that itself is a misconception. So even if one finds reality in misconception, that reality is actually it is born of misconception. Therefore, any good, anything that is right in this material world is not right completely, is not completely correct unless and until it is connected to the service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, in the scriptures it is said that for one who serves the Supreme Personality of Godhead and one who serves, does service under the spiritual master and under the scriptures, all good qualities are naturally born within that person. But for somebody who is simply existing in the realm of the mind, in other words, who is existing in misconceptions, no good qualities can exist in that person, even though it appears that the person is pious, the person is truthful, because it is all based on misconception. Ultimately, it is all a zero, a big zero. So, without being connected to Krishna, without being connected to the real world, the real existence, everything else may appear to be real. However, it is an illusion if it is born out of misconception. And the greatest misconception is that one can enjoy separate from Krishna. And the reality is that real enjoyment is when one serves Krishna, when one offers service unto Krishna. Another short story is about the great sage. It is said about many sages, one of the sages being Ashtavakra Muni. And this great sage was visiting the king of Mithila, King Janak. So it's not really very clear if this King Janak is the father of the Sita, the wife of Lord Ram, or not. But because traditionally all the kings of Mithila, the province of Mithila, were called as Janak. That was the title given to them. If we refer the scriptures, we'll find that. So, anyways, the Muni had approached the king, and the king had asked the Muni a question that I've heard about the illusory energy Maya, and I've heard about how one gets entangled in Maya. Can you let me know how to be free from Maya or free from illusion or free from the entanglement in this material world? The Muni runs to a tree, and the Muni puts his arms around the trunk of the tree and latches onto the tree and starts shouting, please free me from this tree. Please separate me from this tree. Please give me back my freedom. And the king goes up to the saint and he says, dear saint, all you have to do is unlatch yourselves, unlatch your hands from the tree. You just take your hands away from the tree and you will be free. And the sage says, similarly, my dear king, if you just disconnect yourselves from this idea that one can enjoy in this material world separately from Krishna, then one would be free from material entanglement. One would be free from the material darkness, and one would be in the one would be bathing in the compassionate light of real knowledge of Krishna consciousness, and one would be happy. So I'll stop here now, and if there are any questions or clarifications, please feel free to ask. Sure. So the question is being asked that everything is Krishna's energy. In this material world, we find situations such as this pandemic. So how do we explain that? Prabhupada would explain any such occurrences in this material. Oh, sorry, this is my answer. Prabhupada would explain any such situations in this material world by giving the analogy of a prison house. You would say in the prison house, even if one is bound by golden chains or one is bound by iron chains, one has A class facility or one has zero facility. The fact that one is bound by the four walls and one is restricted in one's freedom is going to always create problems for one. So Prabhupada would say that, or what he would imply is that try to be a good prisoner, keep yourself safe in prison, which basically in this pandemic, one has to practice safe and healthy habits. There is always going to be some kind of apprehension whether it is actually true or not and things like that. Whether it is true or not, being safe is always helpful. So um, that is one. And secondly, at least in the prison house, one should try and lead a life of honest dealings. At least in the prison house, we cannot make the situation any more worse. That is not very intelligent. So be dutiful, be honest, be disciplined, be helpful. Follow whatever norms have been given, follow the routine, the schedule that has been set up in the prison house. So since this material world is like a prison house and we realize that we are prisoners here, if we follow these principles, as Srila Prabhupada has said, sometimes the situation may be difficult, pandemic, sometimes it may be something different. One day, by having proven to the judicial committee, once we have proven to them that we have finished our sentence in the prison house and we are now no longer a danger to society or to ourselves, and we will be very compliant in the outside world, we will be let out of the or let out of the prison. We will be liberated. So as soon as we are no longer a danger to ourselves or anyone else, and we have finished our sentence in this material world by practicing the norms that have been given uh, uh, to designate ourselves as a good prisoner, a dutiful prisoner. If we follow those norms, then we'll be liberated, and this material world will simply seem to be existence in this material world will simply seem to be a bad dream from which we'll hopefully not suffer again. Most probably we'll never suffer again from this bad dream once we are liberated, once we have gone back to the spiritual world, to Goloka Vrindavan. So please stay safe, practice all that is needed to be healthy physically and mentally, and for be disciplined, be dutiful, truthful, helpful. All these are the norms that are set, that have been given to us to be good prisoners. And finally, but the most important is to meaningfully chant Hare Krishna, or I think the The word now is mindful, right? To be mindful with our practice of chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. And we'll find ourselves transitioning from being a good prisoner to being a good citizen of a free state in Golok Vrindavan. Is that helpful? Is that okay? All right. So can we stop here if there's no other additions or? Yes, you did. That was because of my tardiness. Sure. Thank thank you very much. All glory to Srila Prabhupada.